I recently maxed out every single department in Megastore Simulator, so what I want to do in this video is go over all the nitty-gritty things you need to know about each department, how to maximize profits, how I set them up personally, exactly how many staff members I have operating them, pretty much everything that you're going to need to know. So we're going to be running a day while we're doing this, but first and foremost, I'm going to have timestamps down below if you want to revisit this video or just navigate this video for any departments that you're interested in specifically. That's going to be available for you. So let's go and get this open because we are pretty much staffed up. First department we're going to be taking a look at is going to be vending. So vending is going to be an extremely unique department in the game because it has its own customer base. It's the first thing to understand about it. So the more you expand it, because you're going to have up to 8 machines, and when you have all the licenses, you cap out on how many customers you can have for this particular department. So as you're seeing here, these customers are coming in, they're buying things, and they're going to immediately leave. They're not here to shop the rest of the stores. So I don't know if the developer is going to keep it that way, but for now, that's the way they operate. So vending is going to be the best early game department in the game. So you want to get this maxed out as quickly as possible, because not only is this going to be an incredible source of passive income, it's also going to be an incredible way to level your store. So right now I'm 157, and a lot of that was contributed to the fact that I had vending so early. I was able to get the reach truck super freaking fast, and that was very nice. And then also with this, I was able to expand a lot of departments like music, as well as my bakery and my grocery department and things of that nature. So vending maxed out early is going to be an incredible source of passive income. Now, in terms of the way I laid these out, I did this pretty early on, so I don't remember exactly the reason why I did this. I just kind of wanted multiple facings of everything. So just to give you an idea, you can kind of look here to see how they are fleshed out if everybody on the planet is not in the way. I went one total soda machine and have donuts and things like that. So that's going to be, the way I personally set them up. Now, the big debate with vending machines is, are they better inside or outside? It just depends. So a lot of people say that they're better outside because it increases not only the customer count for the store, but also increases the total customer count available for the vending machines. I'm going to actually be testing this in a future video because I'm going to be doing some myths, and the vending machine thing is one thing I want to talk about, because I have some particular thoughts on it based on my testing overall. But to keep it simple here for this video, it doesn't really matter, especially once you get to the end game, because once you get to the end game, this is more of a nice to have because it's good passive experience, as well as this good money if you're doing some sort of major expansion or something like that. But really, it's not going to be a big money earner for you in the long run. So I would rather have my employees have quick access to be able to stock these quicker. Speaking of employees, I have one employee set to vending during the morning and then one employee set to vending at nights. This has kept it really full. And then all the other employees that are set to all departments will come and help where needed as well. So vending doesn't need a lot of staffing. It's pretty much plug and play. You get everything set up, you assign a staff member to both shifts, and it will keep up with relatively simply. So you don't really need to go crazy here. But vending, again, is an incredible early game department. Late to end game, it's not really as crazy impactful to your overall experience outside of gaining additional XP. So now let's pivot over to bakery. So first thing I want to talk about first is the staffing. Just to get out of the way here, you only need one team member or one staff member per day. I have this guy right here, and he's absolutely a monster. I'll show his stats right here. He's one of my better employees in the entire category of employees I have. So if I go here, yeah, he's 129, 127 at $96 a day. You can't beat that. So I got lucky with this guy very early on in my store experience. So that guy's an absolute monster for how much it costs. But in terms of setup for bakery, now I've seen people go crazy, do like one SKU per case, all this nonsense. You don't need to do that, because as the store expands, bakery is going to slow down tremendously. I have done everything under the sun to make bakery more of a busy department. I've marked things down below market price at like 5%, 10%. I've also had things at market price. I've had things at 20% above market price. It doesn't matter. Bakery still has this same traffic flow. Like as you can see here, as we're standing here while the customers are walking around, look how many of them are coming to bakery. Now, some of the customers that do come to bakery do buy a number of items. So they'll buy like multiple of one item here, which is nice, but it is really not that busy of a department overall. So with that being said, you are safe to run only one SKU of every item. And if your baker is good and efficient, he'll fill all this in the morning. In 99.9% of the time, you're never going to run out of any of these items, especially some of the larger quantities. Now, we get some of the breads that are a little bit more limited in quantity, maybe, but in reality, I have never once ever since I expanded the store, seen the bakery department blown out and require this massive filling, or I need to jump back here and fill it. So again, you're safe with one team member and one facing of every item. And I think you can run it at whatever price you want. If you want to try to maximize every dollar, put it above market price of whatever you want. But I left it at market price, I believe, at this point, just because I was testing it and just left it there, and it's been relatively fine. Now, in terms of ovens, you only need one. The baker doesn't usually use more than one oven. If you want more than one for aesthetic reasons, go for it. But really, one oven is all you need. Now, the racks are a little bit interesting. When you buy these racks initially, you'll notice that, okay, they don't have enough racks. I think like the top 3 are missing. So eventually you're gonna have to just buy racks just to fill in these empty spaces, which is annoying. But this is the total number of racks you're going to need for the entire bakery. You don't need any more than this. So if you want to count how many there are here, this is what you're gonna need. And the reason why I say that is because there are 2 trays of each item. I do feel like this is the perfect sweet spot. You can even go as low as 1 if you wanted to, but I felt like 2 was fine, and it looks nice too whenever you have it all set up. So again, like I said, all the items in the entire bakery are here on 2 racks or 2 shelves a piece. So you don't really need any more than that. And like I said, that is going to be plenty for the bakery. So again, bakery is a strange department. It's okay. It's the lowest seller in the entire store by a long shot. And maybe they may make some changes to it, but right now it's currently one of those things that I have it and I really like having it. It looks good, but it's definitely not a huge priority. Segueing into grocery. Grocery is going to be a very in-depth license or department to max out. There's a lot of licenses with this department, as well as a ton of variety of items. And there's multiple different kinds of directions you can go with this department. There's a ton of different fixtures, ton of different philosophies around it. Really, you got to decide what you want to do with it, but I'm going to go over my approach for it and how I ended up going about it. So this is my very first department I maxed out. I strongly suggest going with clothing, even though I do feel like clothing is just as complicated and in-depth because it has a lot of items, a lot of licenses, but at least the margins are much higher on clothing when compared to grocery, and clothing is much busier even as the store continues to grow. So one of the things about grocery that's going to be interesting right off the bat is that produce is not really a top seller in the store. It's going to sell decently, but very similar to bakery, it has its own issues with selling. And I think a lot of this stuff has to do with the way the customers interact with the shelves and whatnot. So if one customer occupies a shelf, then no other customers can come over here and occupy the same shelf. So if you have multiple items there, just whatever item that one customer is coming for is going to be occupied until they get it, and then another customer can lock onto it. And I think bakery has a lot of that issue as well. So that's kind of a myth thing that I'm testing and whatnot. But that's why I like these particular shelves right here compared to the other produce shelves, because there's less items in this particular shelf. So there's only 2 SKUs of items. So, but with produce itself, you're fine to run just 1 row of everything. And then I don't even keep back stock, like I've mentioned in my warehouse video in the back. I mainly just order to shelf, but some of these items I do keep back stock of pallets in, like pineapples and things like that. But you don't need to go crazy with produce. Just keep it simple. 1 stripe of every item and you'll be good there. But this is my configuration I ended up going with. Is I have all my fruit except for this this random acorn squash here, but I have all the fruit basically on this island, and I have all the vegetables on this island right here. So looks nice. I think it's decent in terms of sales volume, and I really do like it. So again, things like cabbages, pineapples, things like that are gonna be top sellers here. For everything else, let's talk about the aisles and whatnot. So I feel like you're safe to run 2 SKUs of everything. Now, one thing I'm gonna test and I'm going to experiment with is, instead of these double wide shelves, I'm gonna go to single shelves for everything, but it's a long-term project I've been putting off just because it is gonna be a lot of work. Reason being, again, is that same philosophy. Customers occupy 1 full shelf here, and if there's 2 items on that shelf, it's 1 shelf occupied. But for example, with these wide shelves, if the customer's occupying this 1 shelf, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 items not being shopped by the customer. But if I were to convert this to a single shelf here, then probably the customers will be able to shop this a lot more. But again, we're gonna be testing that in a different video. But for the sake of this video, I do think that 2 items or 2 shelves per item is plenty. You don't need to go 1 full row of every item, because the way that shoppers shop these particular shelves, they're going to shop 1 shelf at a time. A lot of times it's not going to be something that's going to get absolutely blown out like crazy, and doing 1 full row of every item is way too much. It's going to take up way too much volume in this particular section. Now, I do feel like with things like toilet paper and the paper towels, it's going to be worth doing an entire 4-foot section of these 1 items. Again, I may split it down the middle and do 2 shelves. So I do think that's worth it. And then cat food, I just had nothing else, so I put cat food 1. But for the most part, I think that you're safe on this particular section to run 2 two shelves per one item, and you're going to have plenty of stock on everything. Never run out. The pallets are cheap and things like that. Now, the coolers are not something you really need to invest a lot of time into. I have 3 coolers here. Don't really love the fixtures, but I mean, they are what they are. But these things just are not fast sellers. I mean, especially like the drinks. I mean, I've had these same types of drinks forever. I don't think I've ever ordered soda. I've ordered a few of these things a few times, but these are not fast sellers. Now, what is a fast seller is going to be the freezers. I believe the philosophy of running one item per freezer has been very impactful to the sales of these grocery items. I do feel like things like chicken, for example, things like the salmon, things like the pizza, and also things like the ice creams and whatnot, they all sell extremely well just having one freezer per item. It is a large amount of freezers to have, especially early game, but I do feel like it's overall worth it to have this level of volume in your grocery department. I did end up sticking the candies and all the snack type things over here in this section as well. Not really fully sold on that. If I decide to put vending outside, I may shove this over there in the front, but for now they've been here pretty much since I've invested in them. But these overall are going to do quite well. Now, in terms of staffing, I basically have one person on this department during the nighttime. I don't have anybody during the daytime on this. And then everybody else that's set to all will help fill in and get the section filled in. So you don't need to invest a lot of labor. In terms of pricing, I keep everything at 15% above market value. Doesn't feel like people complain about grocery items being more expensive or anything like that. And I think that they do sell at a decent rate at 15%. If you want to increase it, go for it. But really, I mean, you're not going to be selling this stuff that much. And the idea is that you're trying to get people to buy more. So I think market price is probably a little bit too low, but plus 15% on all the grocery items has been quite good. So overall, that's basically how I have the grocery department set up, just to kind of give you another overview and whatnot. It's a bit tough in the beginning, especially once you have only this amount of space. But now that I've opened this up a lot more, it's helped with spacing on grocery and things like that. So again, I feel like this is by far one of the best ways to run the grocery department is pretty much like this. All right, so let's jump over to seafood, which is the newest department added to the game. So right off the bat, so for staffing, I have one staff member behind the counter at night, one during the daytime. Work speed is super important for these because they don't really need to move around very far. So having them be a little bit slower in terms of the way they walk is fine, but just make sure they can work the counter quickly because they're going to need to process these things and get them out very quickly, because there are quite a few customers that will come over here and shop this throughout the day. And then I also have one restocker assigned to this department at night, just because it takes a lot of labor to be able to keep these lobster tanks full, as well as some of the various smaller amount quantities of products like crabs and the various fishes right here I've gone with. The next thing to understand about seafood is that in order to get all the items into the department, you need 5 total of these display fixtures, which is annoying because what ends up happening, I think, is that you get the 4 and then you have one item that's literally sitting here, which is horribly annoying. So you're short. So what I ended up doing was going multiple on some items. For example, like some of these smaller items like red tilapia, perch, red snapper, and then trout. I ended up going 2 of each ice beds on this one. And then, like I mentioned, the crabs, because there's only 4 per on this one, I ended up going 2 ice beds for that. But everything else is fine to be 1. You can make this department as big or as small as you want, but it's, again, not a super busy department, but it's definitely a step above bakery, and it's a little bit of a step above grocery even. It does sell quite well. Now, the big thing for this department is going to be the lobsters. As you can see here, people are buying the hell out of the lobsters. So for that reason, I have 2 pallets of backstock of lobsters in the back, and I primarily have the restocker on the night shift focused on this just to keep the lobsters full. This is by far one of the highest margin sellers in the entire department at $57. And then also I have all the seafood items marked at 16% above market value. So seafood, again, is not a massive seller, but it does need staff members. It's annoying to have to run on your own because you can see customers will come out here periodically throughout the day. And again, it's one of those departments that's kind of like a mid-tier seller, but it's nice to have it fully stocked all the time because it's going to definitely be a good sales driver in the long run as the store grows. All right, so that's all the grocery and perishable departments done. Let's jump over to electronics. So electronics is still being fleshed out because I am working on unlocking these. I think it's 3 expansions right here, so it's going to be a little while, but electronics is going to push back and expand just a little bit more. But with electronics, it is a tricky department. It makes a lot of money, it really does, but it's not quite as valuable as music in the early game. And music is just in general valuable at any stage of the game, right? You have tons of volume coming from music, but electronics is going to be a good second in terms of just sheer dollar amount of volume because these items are so expensive. So early on, it's best to just do one table or keep it very minimal. When you're in the early stages of the game, just order a box here and there to keep it full, but it's not something you're going to expand in early. But as you get to the late game or the mid to late game, you're going to want to expand this very rapidly because it's going to be worth it. So in my philosophy, I have gone one table of most items. For example, like the tablets, they're all going to be one table each for both of the tablets. The computers, I will eventually go one table each, but for right now, I'm just going to be split here because that's plenty. And then for the smartphones, I end up going one full table for the smartphones. Now for the all-in-one computers, you definitely want to have 2 tables of these in the long run because it is very limited quantity. Like I only have 8 out here, and this gets shopped like crazy. I also have 2 pallets of back stock in the back, if you're curious. The vacuums are going to be great to have one shelf for each one because they do sell quite quickly. Now the watches are debatable. I've actually been fine with the watches just being like this. I mean, I've got 2 SKUs of one, and then red is gonna be 2 SKUs, and then white and black are gonna be 3 SKUs each. This has never been really a major issue, so I've kept it pretty much like this, but you can go one circular island for each if you want to in the long run, which is something I'm planning on doing. Now for the smartphone cases, tablet cases, and all the other things that go on these various little shelves, this is exactly how I ended up laying it out. It's pretty simple, right? I ended up going multiple shelves of both of the speakers because it looks nice and I needed something to fill out the space. And for the tablet cases, I ended up going with 2 SKUs of each, and then for the smartphones, it's fine at 1 SKU a piece, but I have USB chargers flanking on either side, and then in the middle I've got the rest of it. So this was fine. I wanted to just make sure I had plenty of spacing for everything, and ultimately this ended up being pretty good. And then lastly, of course, over here the keyboards and mouses are going to be that. Now in terms of pricing, I ended up going 50% above market value for everything in the electronics section. Yes, people complain about it, but they will also do this. They'll complain about this, then come over here and buy this. Then they'll complain about this, come over here and buy that. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You're going to be making so much money hand over fist for electronics that you can deal with the customer complaints. So I don't really worry about it too much. Put it at 50% and left it there. Now, in terms of staffing, I have 1 staff member assigned to this department at night. You don't need any more than that because what will happen is that staff member most times will be able to keep up with it just fine, which is this lady right here. But outside of that, you have other roaming team members that will be able to come over here and be able to fill in as well where needed. But again, electronics is not going to be a massively busy department, but the items in this department hit so hard in terms of how much they cost. I mean, you're going to make a ton of money off of this. Let's finally talk about the most profitable and by far the most annoying department to manage, which is music. This requires not only a lot of effort to be able to manage it because you need a lot of staff volume, but also you'll be ordering this stuff like crazy. It's just quite wild, but the volume that this thing has is insane at the end of the day. So what I ended up doing was going with 2 SKUs of most things outside of a couple of speakers, which I'll talk about in a moment. So these various bags and whatnot, like the guitar bags and the cello bags and things like that, are going to be great early, but they are just impossible to keep stocked until you get staff members on them regularly. So that's just one thing you got to fight. Is I do wish that these would stack a little bit higher. Like, I mean, why don't they just turn up or be able to stack higher? Because you'll see up in these sporting goods when we get there that some of the items do stack higher, and I wish that same principle applied to these music items. And it's the same thing for the guitars, right? The guitars are incredible in terms of sales volume, but the problem is that you can only hold 3 per little rack. So what ends up happening is these get sold out a lot, especially if you don't have staff members all over the stuff, you know, to be able to keep it full. So ultimately what I ended up doing was for most items, I ended up going 2 again, like I mentioned. And then for a couple of speakers, I went 3, and then everything else, I just went 1 for a lot of items as well. So talking about guitars first, again, these are the first set of guitars you're going to invest into. And I would suggest early on, maybe just sticking with the first set of basic guitars to start with. These are going to be great in terms of earning you extra big cash early. And then also they're going to be a handful to manage early as well. So I would definitely keep it pretty slim in the beginning on music while you're expanding vending and while you're expanding other departments you've chosen to go into. But music, when you get a chance to start investing into it, pallets and things like that is going to be worth it because you can get a ton of good sales out of this to be able to maximize your total profits. Now, just to kind of showcase some of the department here in terms of the layout, I have all the CDs and albums along this wall right here on the back. I have all my speakers and things of that nature here in this middle aisle. These speakers, I end up going with 3 shelves each. And on the back, I have 2 SKUs of the rest of the speakers and the amp and whatnot. With the drums, I ended up going 1 shelf of each. Got 1 shelf of all the ukuleles as well as the case. Have 2 shelves of the cello bags, 1 shelf of the violin bags, 2 shelves of the cellos, 1 shelf of the violins, and then here are all the guitars. Here's the electric guitars right here on the back. Here are the bass guitars all lined up. The V guitars are going to be right here in this particular area. And then lastly, the acoustic guitars, as you saw in the beginning, are right here. So this is the layout I ended up feeling like worked the best. It just looks good and it functionally works well for the staff members. Now let's talk about staffing. So obviously I have a bunch of staff members that will jump in terms of all staff members, but I have 2 staff members in the morning assigned to this department to keep it going. And then I have 3 staff members at night. So that is 5 total staff members assigned just to music to keep it full. That is the big thing with music, is you got to keep it full and it will run out like crazy between you needing to order a lot of stuff, you needing to have staff members all over it at all times of the day. Again, music is one of those beasts that once you conquer it, it's fine. Like, I mean, you can see in the flow of things, I'm getting about like 500 or 460 plus customers a day, and it stays full for the most part. I mean, I've really run into no stocking issues just because I've got so many freaking people all over this department at all times of the day. So music, again, is extremely valuable once you flesh it out and get it running well, but to get to this point takes quite a long time, unfortunately. The last thing I forgot to mention is that all of my music items, I do have 50% above market value as well. Again, customers are going to complain, but we sell so much of this stuff, I just don't care, because people will complain about one guitar, then go buy another, and so on and so forth. So again, that's the last thing I'll say about music. So we're gonna migrate up the stairs and check out the departments I have up there. Let's talk about the toy and candy department. Candy's downstairs, and I do have the cotton candy upstairs because they require this fixture. This is probably my least favorite department just because of the fixtures themselves. The back wall fixtures are fine, but these little round fixtures I've never really liked. I'm currently waiting to expand the upstairs a little bit more to be able to maybe flesh this out a bit better, but in the current configuration, this is by far the best version I found. Now, the great thing about toys is that it's going to be a really cheap license to invest into early. So meaning that all the items in here are not only cheap to order by pallets, they're also cheap in terms of the amount of the licenses cost, and the licenses, the department as a whole is very small in terms of license. Now, the candies do take a little while to get all in, and they are quite expensive, but outside of that, the actual toys themselves are good. So for the most part, this is kind of what I went with. So some of these big toys that require these little circular things ended up going just with 1 each on each island. Went with 2 things of cotton candy at the top, and then 2 of these little toys, keychain things at the top as well. This works really well. I don't really run out of stock. And then for the rest of them, I went 2 SKUs of everything, mostly for aesthetic reasons. The department looks so small with just 1 SKU of everything. So I think just as an aesthetic purpose, this looks much nicer, having every single thing maxed out at 2 SKUs. So it is a lot of volume, but again, this department is so freaking cheap, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And in terms of the market value, I ended up going 40% above market value. This seems like people don't really complain too much about the toys and whatnot, so I kind of left it here. But yeah, so this is the toy department. Super simple, cheap license to get into. I would definitely wait till you get the upstairs kind of opened up, because this is a good upstairs one, because it doesn't sell too fast, but doesn't sell too slow. So it's kind of got that good in between. I don't have any staff members assigned to this department. It stays full. Staff members will come by and hit this. The ones that are set to every department are going to come by and hit this periodically throughout the day, and it stays nice and full. All right, so let's talk about sporting now. So sporting is going to be very similar to music, but not really. So it has similar fixtures, but the fixtures are much better. So you have more than 1 item that could fit in each one of these slots, which is nice. So it has much longer pegs and whatnot. So it's going to stay full a lot easier. So for sporting, I have 2 total team members assigned to this department, as well as, again, the floating team members will come by and hit this as they're doing things as well. This keeps it nice and full. I don't think you need more than 2. It's working pretty well for me. Now, in terms of spacing, the bags, of course, are going to be a problem, just like in music, but the one bag that's nice that's not going to be a problem is going to be the sports duffels. I did do this for aesthetic reasons, but it's quite a lot of duffel bags, but I do love how these stack up, which is nice. Now, the golf bags are going to be very similar to the bags that we have in the music department. They're going to get blown out so fast, so having more than 2, or more than 2, I have 3 here, of this is going to be very much needed. I would say same thing with these tactical bags. You're gonna need more than 1. I went 2 on the burners as well as these sleep sacks. Those are all fine to go with 2. But for the rest of the department, going 1 shelf of every item is going to be more than enough. And I tried to categorize it as best as I could by area of expertise or a sporting item, right? So this is all the golf section, and I have dartboards here on the front. Then here on this side, I've got binoculars because didn't really have anywhere else to put them. Got footballs, football cleats, all the goalie things, the soccer balls, the gloves, the helmets, all the baseball stuff, all the what is this, the curling stuff. I've never even watched curling, but there you go, it's all there. All the tennis racket stuff, cricket balls, got the bows, got all the skateboards right here, got the volleyballs and basketballs because those, they didn't have a place. And then lastly, I have all the supplements. Supplements are a big investment, but they get so many on a pallet. It's not really that big of a deal in the long run, but initially it is quite a bit. And then lastly, the hockey stuff back here. So Sporting is a good mid-tier, above mid-tier seller. It sells quite well. So I do like it, and it's pretty cheap overall. The only thing that's mega expensive to palletize is the binoculars, but again, you get so many freaking binoculars when you do palletize it. It's not that big of a deal, but you're going to be constantly ordering bags. That's just the main thing that sells up here, just like any other department with bags involved. So I do, again, if I didn't mention it, have it above 40% on market price. This sells fine at that, very similar to the toy section. I think that's a perfect sweet spot for this department overall. So again, that ends up working really, really well. Let's talk about the beast that is clothing. So next to grocery, clothing is going to be one of the more intimidating departments in the game to get into, just because of the fact there are a lot of licenses. There's a lot of items involved in this license, in the licenses. There's also a lot of various fixtures you could choose from. Some are good, some are not good. Some are more meta to use than others. There's just so much going on with clothing at the end of the day. Now, starting with staffing first, I have 3 total staff members assigned to clothing at night, as well as, again, I have all the roaming staff members that will come up here and fill it as well. But 3 staff members at night has kept clothing relatively full with only 1 SKU or 1 rack of each item. So, for example, like this little circular rack here can hold 3 different items on it. These double racks here can hold 2 different items and whatnot, and I only have 1 SKU of everything, and it seems to be working pretty well. Clothing is not in its final form for me. I still have to knock down this wall. The store is going to expand dramatically in this direction as I get more upgrades. So clothing is going to continue to evolve as a department for me. Now I'm going to talk about the meta thing first that everybody's going to be down in the comments talking about, is going to be putting everything that you can on these particular racks. These racks are very good for volume. So if you want to take all these t-shirts, for example, right here, you can put them, just do 1 t-shirt per shelf, and then you'll have a ton of volume. I don't want my department to look like that because, again, I do feel like it just looks so much better when you put a little bit of effort into trying to style it out a little bit more. And again, I don't have the perfect layout yet. I'm still working on it. It's going to take time. I have to expand the store more and get more space. But ultimately, I do feel like that this was one of the better ways to go with clothing, because when you have the staff members to keep it full, having 1 section for everything works pretty well. I haven't really run into a bunch of stock issues. As you can see, it stays pretty full, even with a lot of people coming up here. So again, clothing is one of those departments that there's not really a good way to run it. There's meta ways to run it to not run out of product. There's also artistic ways to run it to make it look nice. But ultimately, clothing is going to be one of those departments where you just got to make it work the way you can, because there's so many freaking clothing items. I mean, like, look at all this crap. There is so many SKUs of clothing. It's absolutely ridiculous. Takes up a lot of warehouse space. I think it's 5 total racks in the warehouse. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, my big long-term plan is to double up on some of these things. Like, for example, I know I'm running runs here, but I will end up putting some items on here, maybe make it look nice, have some stacked items. Maybe the developer will add some more items in the future to be able to utilize these a little bit better, like shoes or something like that. I would like that. But yeah, this is my current layout for clothing. It's not the final form. I need more space because clothing is, again, massive. So that's one of the biggest things about it. In terms of the pricing, I ended up going 30% above market value. Not really a good rhyme or reason. I'm just testing it at this current market value. And people seem to be buying it. No complaints. Nobody complaining about overpricing and whatnot. People seem to be buying it quite well. May move it up to 35%, but currently I'm going to keep it at 30% because, again, everybody seems to be pretty happy with it. So, again, clothing is a beast. I would say grocery is competing with it in terms of amount of things, but this thing is freaking crazy. Now, I'm gonna give you one final thing that I learned the hard way with clothing, so we don't have to waste your time. So there are some items, obviously, that require hanging racks, and some items that can go on either hanging or folded. So I'm going to tell you the items to avoid, or I'm going to order this real quick while I'm sitting here. Order that to Doc 4. So these are the furniture items I would avoid. So it's all subjective and personal preference. But this one, for example, like the folded rack, it would seem like, okay, there's 3 racks here, but you can't put items on these other 2 racks. Not that I can see. I tried. a bunch of different times it doesn't work. So you can only put items on the top one. Same thing with this white cloth table. You can only put items on the top and not the bottom. And it's kind of annoying for that reason. So that's why I ended up going with the round clothing racks. I felt like those looked really nice, especially since you could put 3 different items on them. And I went with the double racks because you could put 2 different items on the double racks, and they have a much smaller floor footprint when compared to something like the straight clothing rack, because you could put more items on the straight clothing rack technically. And the tall rack I really didn't like too much, so ended up going with the double and the round ones just to kind of max it out. And then the tiered ones, of course, everybody loves because they can freaking put so many clothing items on there, but I just think it looks so tacky to have all the clothing items on there. So that was a long-winded way of saying clothing is a beast. Get into it at your own volition. If you want to do it early, might be a good idea to get it done early, but understand that it is going to be a monster when you ultimately get into it. Alrighty, so we actually ran 3 total days. While I was making the video, there was a lot to cover, but I wanted to show you the final reports after day 3. So here is my total sales volume. So 467 customers. We had $104,000 worth of sales. We ended up netting quite a bit because we're not really buying too much in terms of expansions and things like that. So far, this is the best way I found to maximize overall profit for the entire store, is the way I showed you. I'm making a lot of money hand over fist. Yes, you could look at this and be like, I have 91 people that found products too expensive, but look at the ratio, right? I had 466 total satisfied customers out of 467. So that means that only 1 customer walked out angry out of every customer that came in the store. I'm pretty happy with that because that means people are buying something in here, and a lot of times it is those high-end expensive items. I really hope you guys found this video helpful, and I will continue to make videos like this as the developer adds more departments, as we expand the store and get more space and things of that nature, just to update you on the progress of the main store here and whatnot. But let me know what tips and tricks you have for your departments, how you've priced things, your overall philosophies with how you deal with things. I'll be very curious to know what you guys are doing. Make sure you like, subscribe for more content similar to this. But anyways, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.